Glad to do it, glad to be here. For those of you who were here last year, I've got all new material, so you'll pick up some new things here as well, I hope. Again, thank you for allowing me to come and present to you guys. Certainly the things I'm here to talk to you about dressing for success and why first impressions matter, but the truth of the matter is I'm here for a different reason. We have 2 openings at our company, and I'm here recruiting for my own company. So if you have an interest in experimenting in the world of recruiting, it's really a sales job if you want to get right down to it. Give me a call and we'll be glad to talk to you. We have 2 openings that we're looking to fill as quick as we can, so there you go. Seriously though, talk about dressing for success and why first impressions matter. There really are a lot of pieces to this. We're going to start with, rather than talk about just dressing for success, talk about some resume stuff, because that really resonates with us in this marketplace. You ever feel like a needle in a haystack when you're looking for a job? There's a lot of pieces and parts going on to it. So I thought I'd tell you a little bit about what happens after you found that ideal job and you're starting in an application process. What that pie might look like, which you're going to be participating in. So here's a breakdown of a typical online job posting. So company posts a job out there. 1,000 people typically will look at that job posting. 200 will typically start doing the application process, and a full 100 will complete the process. So a lot of competition, right, for that one job, 100 people. When you think about it, the numbers that looked at it, that's really a low number, but when you're one of those 100, that's a big number, isn't it? The next piece is that 75 of those 100 who applied will be screened out. 75, 3/4 of that 100 will be screened out by either the candidate tracking system, applicant tracking system, or a recruiter or somebody in HR in the mix. So our job is to whack that list down big time, right? And so some of you may have experienced that. 25 resumes will be sent to the hiring manager. 8 of those will be read. We'll talk about that in a minute, what that read means. 4 to 6 will be selected for an interview. 2 to 3 will be brought back for a final interview. And 1 will be offered the job, and there's an 80% chance that person will take the job. So this pool dwindles very quickly for those available jobs out there. So the odds like this, what do you got to do to stand out? Well, first of all, you got to make sure that you stand out, and you got to make sure that you stand out for the right reasons. You want to make sure that you've got those common mistakes taken care of, and so we're going to talk about some of those common mistakes that occur in people's resumes. So, where do you go to look for this stuff? Well, that's interesting. The place you go is to the job description, okay? So you go to the job description to write your resume. Is that what I'm telling you? And the answer to that is yes. You know, back in my day, we got our resumes written, and we take them down to Kinko's, and we get some nice bond paper and some matching envelopes. So you're shaking your head back there. And we print out a couple hundred of them, and we'd mail them out, and Bob's your uncle. We were getting interviews. But of course, that doesn't work that way anymore. You need to find out what that job description looks like, and you need to figure out what those hot buttons are. So you really have to sit down with that job description. And this takes a little bit of time. That's why you just can't go randomly applying to jobs. And so some of you are thinking, what he's saying, I've got to write this resume for every job I apply for? And the answer is yes. It's exactly what you have to do. So you have to take that job description, and you have to try to get inside the hiring manager's head. And you have to figure out what those key words are, and to build those into your resume. Okay? So we'll talk about why that happens and how that means. And so what does this mean for you, when you're preparing your resume? In the old days, we had what was called an objective statement. Okay? That's what this is. Talented sales, 20 years of experience, and yada, yada, yada. Didn't really say anything about the job and the activities and the things that were going on. Now, I mentioned that 75 of the 100 got screened out by the tracking system or a recruiter or somebody in HR. Very often, what companies look for now in the electronic world are keywords. Okay, so those are those kind of keywords that you went through the job description and try to pick out what those keywords are. when companies scan this resume, if it doesn't have those key words in it, guess what? It's one of those 75 that doesn't make the cut. Okay, so very often, it's not about necessarily the content of your resume, is having those key words in place. Some of the more sophisticated software tracking systems, if those keywords aren't in the top third of the resume, you don't make the cut. So there's some real sophisticated systems out there. Now obviously not all companies use those, but that's something for you to keep in mind. That's why this, what used to be this objective statement, needs to be changed, and you need to make that your summary about the job. So take that job description, now you write like this. So as you're looking for a top talent to fill your executive role, I'm ideally suited to bring the executive approach to say blah, 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 blah. So I've converted that into a paragraph that tells the company why I can be of service to them, what I can do for them. So that's what you want to try to redirect this thing around, having this summary statement rather than that old canned objective. This is the part you have to rewrite every resume you go to, because you're going to want to rewrite these sentences and things around the key words you find in that next job you're going to apply for. Okay? So it's not totally mind-numbing that you've got to always reinvent the wheel. You may only have to reinvent this section, and you may have to move some of these things around depending on the kind of job you're applying for. But this is the most important part, because that gives you a chance to get their attention very quickly, which is what you need to do. So, how do you spell potato? Now, most of you aren't old enough to know who Dan Quayle is, other than read it in your history book, who's George Bush Sr.'s vice president. And there was an episode where he went to a spelling bee and they asked him how to spell potato. This is how you spell potato. And if he's known for anything in history, it's probably this blunder. So you don't want that blunder to be what keeps you out of your job. So make sure that you have your resume spelled correctly. I see horrendous spellings every day, okay? It's real easy to do. You just need to really concentrate to make sure that you've got all your spelling done properly and your sentences written properly and all those sort of things. Because while the interview will get you a job, the resume gets you to that. The resume will get you out of the job, as you saw from the numbers above. When we're eliminating 75 out of 100 people because the resume didn't cut the mustard, you don't want it to be because of spelling. So you have to make a first impression with your resume before you ever get to the interview side of the house. So have someone else look over your resume, and there's a real key point. Make sure you realize that spell checks don't always catch those words. Okay, sometimes they're spelled right, or your spell check, somewhere along the line you may have actually added that to your dictionary, misspelled. So it's always a good idea to check that over, double check, and make sure, and just remember that the spelling checks don't always work. You have services here at the college can help you, the university can help you with that. Your student services, they can help you have somebody, have a counselor, have somebody look at your resume. It's always a great idea to have a disinterested partner go look at your resume and give it to your mom or your dad or your sister or your brother, girlfriend or boyfriend. They're not really objective, all right? So give it to somebody that can be objective about it and have them look at it and make sure it looks the way it's supposed to. Because those mistakes directly affect you, they don't affect anybody else, okay? So, is your resume too long? That's the next big thing we get. An eye-catching study found that an average recruiter spends 6 seconds. I told you earlier I was going to talk about 25 resumes were read. They weren't read, they were scanned. 6 seconds is an average time. I'll take a resume, and I'm guilty of that too. I look at a resume, and very quickly, within 5-10 seconds, I'm looking and saying, and I put it aside. So you have to catch my eye. Again, that's why that summary statement does that job. It tells me what I need to know about you. Okay, so that's an important part of it. So that you can, if you can, limit your resume to 1 page, 2 at the very most. I get resumes in sometimes for 12, 14 pages long. Are you kidding me? Nobody's going to read 14 pages of information. And you talk to the candidate, it's like, this is all valid information. This is all stuff. Says, yeah, I know. I'll get the novel later. The lesson here is In order to sell to John Brown what John Brown buys, you must sell to John Brown through John Brown's eyes. What does all that mean? That means, what's in it for me? Not you. What's in it for me, the hiring manager? Why do I want to hire you? That's why that objective statement of past has to be converted into that summary statement of how you can affect the job, how you can deliver what they're looking for in the job. So that's why it's critical for you to rewrite that statement around that job description. Make sure you catch my attention. That's why you would be a good fit, that you can fill those things that I'm needing to do. And then you back that up with the skills down below that to corroborate what you've done and how you can bring this information to my business. So, what does the header on your resume look like? Well, it should look like something like this. Clear name, home address, only a cell phone number. If you've got a home number on your resume, how's Foxworth said it? You might be old if you've still got your home phone number listed on your resume. It's kind of passé when we see resumes with phone numbers on it. This might be an older person, maybe we want to look at a younger person. I'm just saying. I can say that I'm 62, so I know what an old person looks like. An email address, a business style email address. If you've got some cute little email address, that's fine for you to have it while you're here in college. When you get in the real world, you need a business address. Okay? I had a guy I argued with for months. Looked like it was a good fit for a job I was trying to fill, but his email address was ilovetofish@gmail.com. I said, Bill, I am not submitting you to this company with an email address like that. Go back to Gmail and get a business, just get your name. I don't care if it has to be David McElhaney 12345 at gmail.com. Get a business email address. Because, people look at those things. It's the little things that can catch you up and can really throw you. So make sure that you get a business address. And, as I have my LinkedIn profile on here. If you haven't built a LinkedIn profile yet, we'll talk about that later in class, you need to get a good LinkedIn profile built because it's a great business source for you. It's a great place for you to start getting connected with people. So I always recommend that you first of all build a good LinkedIn profile and then add it to your header. Now, whether you include your URL or not, you should be aware that we are going to go look at your public images. Okay, we're going to go look at the sites that you belong to. We're going to go look at your Facebook. We're going to go look at your LinkedIn. We're going to go look at your Twitter accounts. We're going to go look at Pinterest and all those other places where we can find you, okay? Because we want to see what you're doing in your personal life as well as what you do in your business life. So, if you've got beer bong pictures up there on Facebook and other bong pictures on Facebook and party pictures, I recommend you start getting them down now so that they're not, they're not up there and they're not in the archive. So, get that cleaned up. Because 93% of us are going to go look at social media and see what we can find out about you. And a lot of times, again, it's part of that screen out process. So include your URLs on your professional profiles. Okay, so the key to formatting so that you can scan quickly is to organize your jobs and your skills, your relevant qualifications, your achievements as they relate to your job posting. This is the other thing that you sometimes have to move around. If you've got a job that, I used to be a deputy sheriff in a previous life. Well, that was a long time ago, okay? That was back in the 80s. Yeah, really. It's not relevant now, but on the bottom of my resume, after I get through my business cycles, it says other jobs held, and I've got that listed there as a deputy sheriff. I was a firefighter. I was a EMT paramedic and EMT paramedic instructor. So I have all that stuff listed as just other jobs. Now, if I was going to apply to be the police chief at Athens, I would resurrect that. I would bring that law enforcement piece back up because that now becomes germane. Okay? But in the business world I'm in, it's not germane anymore, so it's just down there as a footnote. So you do have to move those things around depending on the kind of job that you're applying for. The next important thing is take this off. If you've got references available on request, we know that. We know everybody's got references because you know we're going to ask you for them, right? So don't put that on your resume because you're just taking up space that you could be used for something else. We're going to ask you for those anyway, so get that off your list. So here's a checklist. Do I have a header that's set up correctly? Do I have a mobile phone number for my contact? Do I have my LinkedIn URL listed? Do I have a compelling professional summary instead of an objective statement? Did I list my education, my college, my trade schools, professional courses, anything relevant to that certification or anything relevant to that job that you're applying for? Does my resume highlight my accomplishments? And this is really an important piece. Most people put all the stuff that they did, jobs they held and things they have, but they don't put in their accomplishments, okay? Accomplishments are really important. What did you do there? Well, I was a vice president of sales, and I ran the sales force of 100 people. Yeah, and what did you do? Oh, I drove $75 million in sales the last year I was in business. I brought the business from, the first year we were in business, 2 million in sales. I was there for 10 years, and during that 10-year period, I grew sales to $75 million in sales. Ah, now that's an accomplishment. The fact that I was a vice president of sales for 10 years is not an accomplishment. So remember the difference between features and benefits. You want to make sure that you're driving what that accomplishment is, that you can say, this is why I can help you, because I've done this. Okay, so think about those kind of things. Did you list your awards, rewards? And this is an important level for you guys, because you don't have a lot of jobs and credibility and stuff you can put in there when you're still in school. But some of you are doing this as you work, but for the most part, if you're a student, you don't have a lot of that. But you have groups that you're involved in, organizations you're involved with. That's why it's important for, as students, that you be involved in your school community, that you participate in groups in the college and university, and that you're involved with it so that you can put those kind of things in there and show your ability to work and cooperate with coworkers. Do you have your skills section listed and to highlight those specific careers? Did you make it extremely easy for the reviewer, the interviewer to contact you? Did you have somebody else look over your resume for accuracy? Again, really important. You go find somebody that you don't like and have them look at your resume. And does it have a clear-cut objectives or summary statement? Finally, is the verbiage clear and professional? This is something that we run into all the time. A lot of people use a lot of jargon, initial abbreviations. If you've been involved, if you're involved in a particular field of study or a particular business, you pick up that alphabet soup, and every company has a different alphabet soup. That doesn't translate on resumes, particularly if you're trying to move to a different part of an industry or a different industry completely. The abbreviations don't mean anything to somebody who's not from that industry. So be sure, be very careful about that as you go through your professional career, that you're not building those abbreviations of things inside your package. Is your information honest and ethical? Really important, guys. We do a lot of checking to make sure that resumes are correct. There's all kinds of stories. There was once a football coach got hired for Notre Dame, be their head football coach, before he ever coached a single game. Found out he'd falsified his degree on his resume, lost his job as the head football coach at Notre Dame. People don't cut corners with this stuff. If you get caught, even years down the road, I know of people who got caught in lies on a resume and were terminated because they were hired under false pretenses years ago. So make sure that you're honest and correct in your information. Does it grab the reader's attention? Did you omit any personal information that they might need? Are you using strong impact statements? Are your responsibilities clear and understandable? Would your resume entice the hiring authority to interview you? That's the bottom line. That's the bottom thing you got to ask. That's the question you got to ask. And that's the question you ask that person that's looking at this. If you look at my resume, is this somebody you would hire? Okay? Make sure it does. Make sure it does all those sort of things. Because your job application can be saying the wrong thing about you. And this is two important things to remember. Your resume is never finished. You should never look at that as a completed document. I talk to people all the time and they say, you know, I gotta brush off my resume. Please don't ever have to brush off your resume. Every time an event happens in your business career that's a positive thing, write it down. So that when something does happen, you're not having to go back and try to think up what happened, how did I impact this, what did I do? So when you make a big win, sit down right then and update your resume in your accomplishments. While I was at Global Cruise of Huntsville, I did this. Do it right now. Do it while it's fresh in your mind so you can say what you drove to the bottom line. Because really it's about either you saved the company money, you made the company money, or you improved the process. Okay, those are what accomplishments we typically look for. Okay, did you make company for the money? Did you save company for the money? Did you improve processes in the company? If you can capture that now while it's occurred, if something happens down the road and you get fired or quit or something, you don't all of a sudden have to go, oh, now I got to rebuild this thing. I always want to be ready. Jobs are very volatile, and you can walk in the next morning and be terminated completely out of the blue and be completely blindsided by it. If you've got your resume written, if you've got your resume updated, it makes life a whole lot easier, okay? So it's always a work in progress. You always want to keep adding to this and building this as you're going through your career path. All right, so you landed the interview. Now what? Now we got to get ready to go do the work, right? Got to get ready to go do the interview. So some do's and don'ts about the interview process. First of all, be on time. There is no excuse for being late to an interview, okay? I have passed on hiring some really talented people because they weren't there on time. Okay? There is no excuse for missing an interview. Whenever I interviewed for a job, I was always there 2 or 3 hours ahead of time. Now, I wasn't sitting in the lobby for 2 or 3 hours, but I knew where I was going. I drove to the place. I scouted out the place. I knew exactly what was happening. I went to the restaurant, I had a cup of coffee. I came back before the office opened. I parked in the parking lot, and I sat and watched. I watched people coming in. I watched for a couple of reasons. Number one, I want to see dress code. How are they dressed? Okay? Are they in suits? Are they in casual clothes? Are they in flip-flops and t-shirts? I want to see how they're dressed, what the daily activity is going to look like there in the facility. I want to see attitudes. If they're coming there and they're all hangdog and they're stumbling in and they're like, oh God, here we go, another day. You know, I want to know those things. And you don't know those things unless you're there early. Because if you're there when you walk in the door, they're like, oh, hi there. Okay? Because that's what they're supposed to do. The true picture will be in the morning when they're coming to work. Shoulder slump, dragging in there. You can see attitudes. Really important. Culture is one of the most important fits that you don't know until you get in there, right? This is a real good example how you can figure out that culture beforehand. Okay? So that's what I always did. Don't be late. Second, dress for success. We're going to talk about those components in just a minute. When you get into the interview room, you want to take the initiative. You want to look around the person's office and see what's going on, see what they've got posted up there. It's always great to see kids, wives, animals. Kids, wives, animals, schools. Kids, wives, animals, schools, nature pictures. Kids, wives, animals, schools, nature pictures, sports events. Any of those sort of things give you a clue to open a conversation with the hiring manager and say, ah, so you went to Auburn. Oh, well, good. Good. Good things to think about. You want to always be able to talk good about whatever you're going to see on the wall because you want to make a good first impression. But those are really good things to do for icebreakers. We'll talk about this as some link too. You don't want to oversell yourself when you're on the interview, and we'll talk about that in some detail. You always want to have questions about the company that you're going to interview with, and you want to make sure that you ask for the job. So let's boil this down a little bit. Let's talk about some of these components. Don't oversell yourself. This is really easy to do. I ask questions to people and they ramble for long periods of time. We're not looking for life history. Okay? We're looking for short answers. You want to keep your answer short. Short and succinct. Just give me the meat of the matter. Tell me the sizzle. I don't want to hear all how the sausage was made. Most experts will tell you that you need to listen more than you talk, and this is a sales job, all right? So you need to listen to what's being said, make your answers clear and succinct, and wait for the next question. In Judges, chapter 15, verse 15 in the Bible talks about Samson. It says, and he found a jawbone of an ass, and he put forth his hand, and he took it, and he slew 1,000 men. And every day, the same number of jobs are lost with the same instrument. The jawbone of an ass. Okay? Stop talking. I can't tell you how many people have talked themselves out of a job by rambling. One of the good techniques is to ask a question and sit and listen. And when the answer is finished, you just continue to sit and listen. And more often than not, the person will start talking again because they can't stand the gap. Okay? And I do that all the time just to see what you're going to do. See how long you're going to sit there and squirm in your chair. And so it's kind of it's something that you'll have to learn to deal with. Just sit there and smile, okay? There's an old adage in sales, he who talks first loses. I don't necessarily believe that to be true, but in this case, it could be. Particularly if you start rambling and, again, talk yourself out of the job. So, tell us about yourself. That's a typical question you get. There are really only 20 questions that you get in an interview. And there are many, many different variations of those 20 questions, but there really are only 20 questions. And they're really pretty simple. Tell me about yourself. What's your biggest strength? What's your biggest weakness? What's your personal characteristics? How do you solve problems? What can you do for this industry, for this company? How do you organize? On and on. There's only really 20 different questions that people ask, but there's, of course, 100 different variations. This is one of the more common ones that you get. Tell me about yourself. Don't start with, well, let's see, I was born in Ohio, and I went to grade school at Princeton Elementary in Orlando, and then I went to, we don't want to know that. Here's a really important thing to say. You start off with words like, okay, to be brief, or, hey, here's a short version, and give us your business input. We don't want to hear all that other nonsense. Here's another example. Well, the reason I like this job is because ever since I was a child, I was fascinated with things mechanical, yada, yada, yada. Since I was interested in mechanical stuff, I took a career in the mechanical engineering world, yada, yada. Ask intelligent questions. Really important that you have your questions that you're going to ask the company and that you have them written down. Okay? Go into the interview with the questions that you're going to ask. You're going to get that question at some point, in some form, and say, okay, do you have any questions for me? Well, you want to have that list of questions written down. Really important, have them written down. So think this process through. Go out to the job, to the company website and see what's going on. Go onto LinkedIn, find the companies on there and see what they've got going on. Reach out to some people in the company on LinkedIn and touch base with them. Learn as much as you can about the company so you can ask really important questions about the company to prove to the hiring manager that you know about the company and that you're interested in coming to work there and you've really done some research on there and you want to have the questions written down. Now, very often, as you go through an interview process, particularly if you do a round, there are really 3 types of interviews. There's phone interview, there's face-to-face interviews, there's a couple more. There's group interviews, and there are platform interviews or roundtable interviews. The most common is that roundtable where you go this office and then this office and this office and this office. I did that throughout my whole career. That's what I like to do. And I was always the last office. So when you got to my office and I said, so, do you have any questions for me? I was stunned at the number of people who would say, no, I've already got all my questions answered. That is the wrong answer. Whoever you're interviewing with, you must always have questions. If that answer is ever, no, I have all my questions answered, you're probably not getting hired, okay? So have those questions written down. If you got answers to every single question that you had written down, if I answered every single question, then when I ask you that question, you say, yes, I do have some questions. And say, you already told me about this. This is one of the questions I had written down. You already answered that. Tell me more. Tell me more about that. give me some more information. Just anything, give me a little extra, give me more, give me more, give me more. If you answered it, if I answered every question, you're gonna, and you also answered this question, well, tell me more. You answered this question, expound on that. I mean, always ask questions, okay? Critical piece. By doing this, you show the interview that you've looked at the job description, you've clarified the information you had, you've looked at the websites, and you're ready to go. Always be closing. Always be closing, okay? So how do you close? Well, you might say, do you see me fitting in this role? Or you might say, what are the first things I will need to do when I'm in this position? Or you might say, what are the next steps in my interview process? Are you going to recommend me for the position? Never miss an opportunity to ask for the job. If you don't ask, you don't get, okay? Number one premise in sales, if you don't ask, you don't get, okay? If you don't ask for the job, again, I've never hired anybody that didn't ask me for the job at the end of the interview. If somebody didn't ask me one of these types of questions, not just these, but any type of closing question, you didn't come back for a final interview. Okay? You didn't get the job. Follow-up, critical piece. For each interview that you have, make sure you've got their contact information, business card, spelling of their name, title, etc. Write a note immediately after the interview and make sure it's enthusiastic and upbeat, showing your continued interest in this position. Now, there's always a debate about this. I talk to people all the time, so you've got to write a handwritten thank you note. And that's right. You always should write a handwritten thank you note. And other people say, you got to send an email thank you note. And they're right. You got to send an email thank you note. It's important that you do both. Okay, in our fast-paced world that we're living today, if you interviewed with me tomorrow and you wrote a nice handwritten note to me, a thank you note, and you put it in the mail, guess what? It didn't go from here to Huntsville. It goes from here to Birmingham. The language is down there for who knows how long, and it comes back up. I've actually tracked mail that takes 7 to 11 days to go in from Huntsville to Birmingham, back to a Huntsville address, okay? So I'm probably gonna have hired somebody by then, right? And you ain't it, because I didn't hear from you, okay? I have never hired anybody. I have never hired anybody that I didn't get a thank you note from, okay? If I'm moving fast, if I gotta fill this role and you mail it to me, you're probably not getting hired, okay? So you wanna do an email, okay? Email's the fastest thing. Make sure you get an email out. I paraphrase an old Elton John song. Don't let the sun go down on your interview. Okay? If you have an interview today, send a thank you note before you go to bed tonight. Okay? And then follow up with a handwritten note. If I'm not in a big hurry to fill that role, and I interviewed 5 of you, and you all 5 sent me an email thank you note, and one of you mailed me a handwritten email. It doesn't have to be handwritten. Quite honestly, if you do it on the computer, that's perfectly fine too, as long as it's on a thank you note. Trust me, nobody wants a handwritten note from me. I should have been a doctor the way I write. But I send out thank you notes all the time, but I do it on the computer, print it on my company thank you notes, and sign them. If 5 of you sent me an email thank you note, one of you sent me a handwritten or a mailed message, I'm probably going to hire that person. Because they went the extra mile. They did a little bit extra. So they're both right. Do both. Always do an email if you have an opportunity to do a follow-up with a written thank you note. Now the best way to send them in mail, take time to double check to make sure the note's error-free. Show your appreciation and consideration for the position. By the way, even if you get a no, if you know that you're not going to come back, always still a good idea to send a thank you note. Hey, thank you for interviewing me. I'm sorry I didn't make the cut. I thought I'd be a great fit for your company. I'd certainly love to be considered for future positions for you. And it always goes a long way to ingratiate yourself for the next time. And remember to stay professional. So you're all set, right? Let's talk about the interview process itself. First of all, the phone interview. A lot of companies do phone interviews because it's easier to screen people out quickly with phone interviews. So here's my rules, and this is what I tell every candidate that I'm coaching through the job market. Wear a suit. A suit, really, for a phone interview? I'm gonna put a suit on to sit in my living room? Yeah, wear a suit. It makes a difference. It makes a difference in your attitude. Sit at a desk, not on the couch or in the car. This affects your own level of alertness. Really important that you try to do this in an office, someplace where it's quiet, not sitting in your car, okay? Sit in front of a mirror. Now, he's really gone too far this time. If you come to my office, every one of our desks, we have a mirror on the desk. Is to remind my team to sit up. It reminds them to smile. When you smile, it changes your voice inflection, okay? Face-to-face interview, you get to see eye contact and interaction and expression and all that stuff. Phone interview, you don't, except in your voice. So sit in front of a mirror, because it does make you sit up and hold your shoulders up. And it does make you think about smiling and talking about it. Have your paperwork spread out on the table so they're not hearing you shuffle through looking for things. Have all the pieces that you've got, all your pieces of your resume laid out, spread out. Any recommendation letters that you want to address while you're there. Any schooling that you went to, any criteria, anything that you want. Have it spread out on the desk so that you can reach that information without fumbling around. And please beware of cell phone connections. I mean, a lot of us don't have landlines anymore. We have to do cell phones. I can sit in my home office and talk to you like this and turn this way and look out the window and you are gone. Okay, so make sure that you know you're sitting somewhere where you've got a good connection. I highly recommend that you have it somewhere where you can lay the phone down using earbuds or a Bluetooth or something, so you're not having to pick up the phone and roam around. All right, so face-to-face interview then. We've made it through the phone interview, we've gone in for a face-to-face interview. So, again, pretty basic, wear a suit, sit up straight with both feet on the floor, carry a nondescript notepad. This is really important, folks. I teach this class, I've taught this class, been teaching this class for 8 years about interviewing techniques and the need to have something in your hand. And the best thing for you to have is to have a notepad. So make sure that you've got one of those that you can carry with you. Ask if you can take notes. Always important. You got this notebook with you, ask if you can take notes. Don't just open your notebook and start writing down and say, do you mind if I take notes? There's not an interviewer in the world that's going to say no. So you open the notebook up, and now what do? Well, you start making notes, or you start drawing a picture, or you start doodling, or you start doing something, because it gives you something to do with your hands. Because you don't want to let them see you sweat. Okay? You don't want to let them see you sweat. So you don't want to do anything else to distract that. So I mentioned I've been teaching this class for a long time. I went to do a series of interviews with WH&T. I was on for 6 weeks, once a week, for about a 10-minute job search piece that they were doing. And I was the first person to do this, the new program they were launching, Get a Job. I forget what their tagline is. Anyway, so I go there and I do my first interview, and I come back home and I said to my wife, I said, so, did you see the interview? And she said, oh yeah. I said, well, how'd it look? And she said, let's go watch it. And so I'm sitting there on the couch like this, and I'm doing this. And I'm mortified when I see this on TV. Well, I knew this was happening. Halfway through the interview, my brain went, stop it. And the rest of the interview, I was white-knuckled like this. Okay? And I was like, are you kidding me? I teach people this all the time. From then on, the rest of the survey, the rest of the things we were doing there, guess what I had in my hand? And I sat there just like this, without touching a thing. Okay? It makes a difference just having something to do with your hands. So I was mortified. So that's the main purpose for having the notebook and having asking if you can take notes, because you don't want to see them. You don't want them to see you sweat. None of this, or this, or this, or this, or this. Nothing. Sit. You have to sit perfectly still. Ladies, none of this. Okay? Make sure your dress is long enough that you're not having to do this. Don't want to see you squirming. Nobody does any squirming. Nobody touches anything. Okay? You sit with your notebook in your hand and you take notes. And you draw flowers, or you draw circles, or you really do take notes, but it gives you something to do with your hands. rather than, okay? Because we all do it subconsciously. All right, so let's talk about my clothing recommendations. Solids are the name of the game. Solids are going to be an easy, simple thing for you to remember. You want articles that are, you don't want to be remembered for your clothing, okay? So again, ladies, I love a great pair of legs, and a low-cut blouse is always attractive. I have never hired one of those because I know the distraction it's going to bring in my company, okay? So, gosh, great to look at, but you're not getting the job. So, remember that most companies, at least the management of most companies, are conservative in nature, okay? So, dress accordingly. I recommend either a solid gray, solid navy, or black suits, something solid, a white shirt, a beige shirt, something of that sort. Here's the most important thing. This is not a time for self-expression, okay? So, no blue hair, orange hair, nothing outlandish, no bright suit. Just keep it simple. This is not a time for that self-expression. The first thing the interviewer is going to notice about you is how you're dressed, okay? When I come into a room, if I go out the door and I'm going to interview one of you people, as soon as I walk in the door, my subconscious mind within 3 seconds has made a decision about you, whether I'm going to like you or not, whether I'm going to hire you or not. My subconscious made that decision in 3 seconds, okay? Scientifically proven, folks. The rest of the interview time, my conscious mind and my subconscious mind are either arguing or agreeing on that assessment. So this is really important because that's the snap decision. That's the way our brains work, okay? So that's why you want to have that conservative look for you. Because you want to make sure that you're making that first good impression before you ever say anything to the person. And that's done simply with 2 things: the way you look and your attitude. My attitude? You haven't even talked to me yet. How do you know my attitude? Because it exudes from you. Okay? All right, so a little experiment. I want all of you to turn and look at the person next to you, and I want you to look them in the eye, and I want you to smile. And I want you to repeat after me. I like myself. 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 So, you should have felt something there, right? Your brain is a chemical laboratory, and your brain just released endorphins into your body. Did you feel? I mean, I felt a tingle. You can't help but do that. One of my favorite authors is a man named Brian Tracy. He talks about this. He talks about you do that every morning. You get up and you look yourself in the mirror and you say, I like myself, I like myself, I love my job, I'm good at my job. Positive affirmation is a wonderful thing. And it affects your brain, just like you all felt that little surge of energy when you were just looking at each other saying, I like myself. He recommends you do that in the car before you get out. Turn the mirror to yourself and look at yourself and repeat after me, I like myself, I like myself, I like myself. It matters. It exudes your attitude and it makes a big difference. So, what's the dress code for an interview? There's all kinds of different dress codes you might run across. Some basic rules to follow. Your goal should be to look clean and healthy and successful. Make sure you don't have bad breath. Nobody wants to work with anybody that stinks, okay? Whether it's body odor or bad breath. You will never see me without a box of mints. Because mints work better than gum. You can't chew gum in an interview. But these little things, Altoids, are really good because you kind of stick them up between your cheek and gum. It's not tobacco, it's the mint, and it does wonders on your breath. Smokers, we have really moved into a non-smoking world, haven't we? If you smoke and you're going on a job interview, I recommend that you get up early and smoke 2 cigarettes before you shower. Smoke 5 cigarettes before you shower. Whatever you need. Get Nicorette patches or whatever. No gum. And don't smoke after you take a shower. don't smoke after you take a shower, okay? Because we can smell it on you. Most companies' offices are non-smoking. And even if I smoke, I'm in an environment where I'm not around smokers, and we smell smoke on you, okay? You can't hide it. If you ever tried to smoke when you were a kid, you always got busted by your parents because you can smell it, okay? And no matter how much perfume you put on, you can still smell it. So, anyway, but don't overdo it with aftershave and perfume. That's the next worst thing is, wow, what kind of perfume is that you're wearing? Oh, you like it? Yeah, it's great. Always err on the side of conservatism. Again, most of the management level people are conservative, so at least with that. Around this area, a lot of the management teams are ex-military. Guess what ex-military look at? Hair and shoes. Hair and shoes. Me too. I always look at hair and shoes. If you come into my place to get an interview and you've got scuffed up old shoes that you haven't polished, it's okay to have old shoes because not everybody can afford new shoes, but you can darn sure polish them, okay? And if you come in with scuffed up shoes, yeah, you just got a mark against you. You know what I do? When I'm done with interviewing you, I walk you to your car because I want to see what your car looks like. If your car's dirty, if your car's messy, guess what your desk is going to look like? Okay? So I walk you to your car. When I'm done with the interview, you walk downstairs and where are you parked? Oh, I'm over in the parking garage. Well, come on, I'll walk with you. Oh, no, you don't have to walk over there. I'm going to my car anyway. Okay? I'm going to see your car. Your hair should be clean and neat. Your shoes should be polished. Your nails should be clean and a reasonable length. Do a bit of research on the company so that you know what to wear. Again, good thing to go maybe a day early and do that reconnaissance in the parking lot. All else fails, ask. Ask what your dress code, whoever you're dealing with, if you're dealing with a recruiting company like me, ask me, what should I wear to that company? If you're working with the recruiter inside the organization, ask them. And if you're going to be out in the plant, you may need steel-toed shoes with you, or you may need jeans with you, or you may need some sort of cover to put on. Good things to ask, good questions to ask. So always ask. That way you won't come up short. Choose neutral colors over bright colors. Again, you don't want to be reminded for your attire. Kind of what I recommend. A dark suit, a light or maybe a light yellow, pale yellow, or pale blue shirt. A tie with some red in it. Doesn't have to be bright red, just a splash of red. Those exudes power. That's a power statement. You all are way too young to know IBM, but IBM used to be called Big Blue because everybody wore blue suits, white shirts, and red ties. And that became known as a power ensemble over the years. It still is. It wasn't something that IBM came up with. It was scientific research. These colors register in your brain as somebody who's in authority, somebody who knows what they're doing, knows what I'm talking about. Ladies, a similar thing. A blue suit, a black suit, a light blouse, a splash of red, a necktie, a pin, something of that sort. Uh-oh. We covered all that. What's the little room there? Yeah, just cover all that. Okay. So, what not to bring? Cigarettes, gum, cell phones. Cell phones, my gosh, people. I had a company call me just less than a month ago and kicked my candidate out because he took a call. Took a call during the interview. Are you kidding me? So, you might think you turned it off. You might think you turned it to silent. But sometimes, you're sitting in a hard chair and have my phone in my pocket on vibrate. We've all heard that. It was distracting, okay? Leave your cell phone in the car. Okay? You're not going to make a call while you're there. If there's anything on your phone that you need, you should have it printed out for you and with you. Phone numbers, contact names, anything like that. So leave it in the car. Don't drink soda or coffee in the car. Okay, it's okay, you're gonna stop at a restaurant, you're careful, but you're gonna spill stuff on you if you're in the car. It just happens, and it happens at the most unopportune time. A lot of young people have a lot of piercings and a lot of tattoos, okay? Again, most of us in the companies, in the management are conservative, at least conservative in nature. So get rid of that stuff. You take it out for the day. Cover the visible tattoos up. No flip-flops, no underwear, ladies, no bras to show, even if they match, okay? No shorts, no jeans, no skirts too tight, no pants too tight, no blouses too low cut, no underwear. Men, again, solid suits. Women, again, same kind of thing. Something that I always try to point out to women, conservative closed-toed shoes. Really? Closed-toed shoes? Why is that? A couple reasons. Number one, not all women pay attention to their nails. And it's very distracting. Fingernails too, when you've got that polish that's, was 3 weeks old and it's half chipped off. Well, your fingers are bad enough, but ladies really ignore their toes sometimes. And you'll see this toe sticking out of an open toe shoe that's all chewed up and gnarly. Okay? You may have great toes. You may have beautiful toes, and they may be manicured well, but you got open-toed shoes and you stub your toe on the corner of a desk or on the corner of something, and the interview is in trouble. Okay, so just wear closed-toed shoes. It's only a couple hours. So, we have a couple of guest speakers with us today. We're going to bring them up and let them talk to you a little bit about dress codes and what they've done and their experiences. But before we go to questions, I mentioned earlier a LinkedIn class. We teach an introduction to LinkedIn class. The next one is next Thursday. If you have an interest in going, here's a phone number you can call or an email you can reach out to, and a website that you can see the locations. Free class. It's an hour-and-a-half class. Sarah Lynn is nice enough to bring me in to do LinkedIn classes once a year, but it's a PowerPoint overview. This is the nitty-gritty. We get on LinkedIn and we show you all the components to it. So if you have an interest in coming to this class, you can apply. It's a free class. We teach it every other month. We over the years, I've been doing this for about 6 years now, and students have always asked for a 2.0 class. So we've started doing that. So on January and March and all the other odd months, we'll be doing the free introduction to LinkedIn class. On the even months, February, April, and so the even number months, we're doing an advanced class, which is a $25 workshop where we actually are going to sit down with you and build your profile for you and build your company page for you, build your groups that you need to be in. But anyway, this is the next free class if you have an interest. So, your guest speakers, Troy?
I have one comment before I go to the speakers. I want to tell you that we had a student that called me on the phone after your presentation last year, and she said, I'm calling to tell you I got the job. And she said, I think I got the job because I did everything Mr. McElhaney said to do. She said, I wore the white blouse, I wore the dark black suit, and she said, I even went out and bought a red scarf. And she said, I'm not really a scarf person, but I thought I needed something red. And she said, and I got the portfolio, and I wrote the questions. And she said, the interviewer, this was a contractor in Huntsville, told her that she stood out above every candidate they interviewed.
Yay!
And so I think that, that first impression made them really pay attention to her and really interview went well. But she did the other piece, she felt very confident. She said, I felt very confident when I went in there. I had to share that with you because she did the whole thing, the dark suit, the white blouse, the red tie.
Outstanding. Good, I'd like to hear that.
So we do have,
Yes, ma'am? Sorry.
My question was, when you were talking about how it's imperative to make sure you write down your questions and ask questions in the interview, why is not asking questions at the interview such a big turnoff?
Shows lack of interest. You haven't gone out to look at our website, but even if it's a compliment, say, I see that you do this, wow, it's great. I love doing what you've done on the website. I love this, that shows interest, or shows lack of interest if you don't have questions to ask. So you always want to have fair questions. And again, one of the things about the round robin that I talked about, one of the things for you, remember the interview is a two-way street. Okay? So you want questions that you want answered. You want to know about the business, about the culture, what we do here, how we work, what the numbers look like, what the team looks like, what's your turnover rate, how long was the person in this position before me? You know, things like that you really want. This is an interview, a two-way street. You're interviewing me as well as I'm interviewing you. So you want to have those questions answered that make sense to you. If you're doing a round robin like I talked about, me being the last one down, if I ask her my questions and I got one set of answers, and I ask her and I got a second set of answers, and I ask her and I got a third set of answers, and I ask her and I got partial mixes, I'm starting to be concerned about this company, okay? But if I get boom, 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 I said, okay, this looks solid. I know what's going on there. I got the same answer. So it's a two-way street. It's not just that I'm going to think that you're disinterested. It's that you want to have questions that you want to get answered to make sure that you're coming into the right place. Because you don't want to get into a job that you then get there and say, oh man, did I screw up? Because now I got to get out of here. And that's okay. It happens. You take a job, you get there, you say, hey, listen, we all, if sometime in your career you're going to have one of those jobs, okay? I had a job that I took, and every day going to work I got a stomachache. I hated going to work there. And I only lasted there about 3 months. And I knew it was going to be a bad situation. I knew I had to get out of it. I didn't do my homework. I didn't ask those questions up front. It looked like a great opportunity, a lot of money, and I took it. And then found out that I had jumped into the lion's den with this guy. And he was, oh man. And I had to get out of that job. Okay? That's okay. But you don't want to have to get out of too many of those jobs, because then your resume starts looking for like a job hopper. You can prevent a lot of that by asking really important questions. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I've kind of a three-part question for you.
I love 3 parts.
Okay, so how do you prepare to interview somebody, and do you look forward to administrating interviews?
Me personally? Oh, I love it. We do mock interviews all the time because it's important for my business that I prepare you to go and do an interview. So yeah, we do interviews all the time. Situational interviews, a couple of things that are really important questions that I always ask is, every job, how did you get that job? Okay? What I'm looking for is, I was recommended, I was referred, I was sought after, rather than, well, I quit this job and went to this job, I quit this job and went to this job. I'm really looking for people who have moved on because they were recruited, they were enticed from so-and-so used to be at my previous company, and when he left and went over there, he came and got me. You know, those are the kind of things I want to hear, because it means, it shows mobility. I like to do interviews because I like to ask questions, and what we train, and I talk to my people about, you know, I mentioned we've got job openings, and it's a sales job, but it's really about being able to ask questions. It's about curious minds, you know, so you think about all those kind of different things, scenarios. A lot of people like to play games with scenarios. And you know, there's all kinds of stupid questions that people ask. The dumbest question I ever got was, you're a pencil in a blender. How do you get out? Seriously, that was an interview question. There's no right or wrong answer to any of these stupid questions. It's about seeing how you project yourself, how you think, how you respond. That's what we're looking for. Not that you're going to come up with some off-the-wall answer that we've never heard about that. It's not like on Star Trek, the big Ashimaru test or whatever it was. You know, there's no real answer to. There are no real answers to these things, but it's how you respond to those things. So we like to prepare people for that so that they make that good impression when they're doing those interviews.
Yeah. All right. My other part to my question, what is your favorite question to ask in an interview, and what is your favorite question to be asked by people you are interviewing?
Well, I think my favorite question I just gave you is tell me how you got this job, and I'm going to take you through your resume for those. One of the other more favorite questions is you know, this is a sales business. We're going to be talking to people all the time. Talk to me about a situation where you had an unfriendly customer on the phone and you had to deal with it, and how did you deal with it? Situational interview questions are always good to find out how people react or reacted to various questions. And finally, one of the things I do in my interview process, particularly if you're coming to work for me, is I'm gonna give you a resume and tell you what we're looking for, and put you over on the phone and have you call me and sell me that resume, sell me that person. So, you know, because again, that's what our business is.
I need to work for you then.
Yes, you do. Any other questions? Troy, you have the floor.
Thank you. My nerves tell me to don't be polite and let the lady go first. Better
Why don't
not.
you go first? We have two students that have volunteered to, come in that very professional dress tonight and show you how you should look on an interview, and, also tell you a little bit about their experiences. The floor is yours.
My name's Troy Burdyshaw, and to be honest with you, it's the first time I've been a model, so I appreciate the opportunity. I graduated from here in 2013, and I'm very grateful for everybody here and everything they've done for me. I live in Birmingham, and I was humbled by the opportunity to come speak, and I appreciate you asking me to come. Thank you for your presentation. I probably learned more in this last hour than I've learned in 20 years, so I appreciate it. But there's, I guess there's a lot of things that come to mind for me in my experience. I guess the first thing is I never know when I'm interviewing. A lot of times if it's a new company, I know I'm going to the interview, but if it's with an existing company, I never know when that interview's taking place because people are watching, and I never know when that's going to be the only opportunity they can see my work ethic. And a lot of the things that I've experienced in my career, my short career, I kind of think I have the best of both worlds. So I was an adult that returned back to school. I was a 24-year-old adult who returned back to school. So I was still young enough to have, I guess, a lot of the nerves and the anxiety about being in the workforce and what that meant. So I got to see kind of both the sides of that coin. But I appreciate the conservative dressing and also to kind of have an idea of what the job will look like. Because if I'm honest with myself, I'd rather overdress for the occasion because I never know when I'll be underdressed. I'd rather be overdressed than underdressed. There's one of the things that I've liked to do in my career is they'll give me an opportunity. Some of them will ask, when do you want to interview? I'm kind of a morning person. In the afternoon, I'm fading. So if I have the opportunity to choose when I'm going to interview, it's going to be at 8 o'clock in the morning, just because that's when I think the best. So it's also when I chose to take CPA exams. So that's what I like to do. He mentioned doing your homework. Most of the employers I've ever worked for were very impressed if I knew what they were doing in the local community, where they were spending their time and money, what they put emphasis on versus what they didn't. I've worked for organizations that put a lot of money and effort into training and development. And a lot of them took notice that I took notice. Because it's important to me that you know, this isn't just a job. This is something I can grow and I can learn in. So that's been important. So doing homework on a company is probably one of the bigger things that's helped me in my career in the interview part of it. And practice. So obviously there's no way I'm going to get around being nervous, right? In front of you guys, just like me, or people that appear to be of a higher standard in the business world. Maybe they have more credentials, maybe they have less, maybe they're older, maybe they're younger. Whatever they are, I'm going to be nervous. So practicing, talking to people I don't know, go in a setting where I can do that and learn how to have a conversation. And a lot of times, so the appearance, obviously, I don't want to look bad, I don't want to smell bad, I don't want to sound bad, but knowing how to look at somebody in the eyes and not look down and not look around, but being able to have confidence to look somebody in the eye, I think goes a long way to the interviewer. He mentioned kind of think like a boss. So I was co-owner of a very small public accounting firm just south of here in Albertville for a couple of years, and I was tasked with hiring a secretary. And I did some of the very same things that he was talking about. I Googled them. I wanted to know what they did. I found out one young lady, she participated in a 5K. It didn't really tell me much about her other than she was involved in exercise and whatnot, but you can find anything on the internet about somebody. One young lady had a pretty extensive photography hobby. And there was timelines of when she was doing this on her website. 8 a.m. in the morning, 11:30 in the morning, 3:30 in the afternoon. And I'm thinking, maybe she was unemployed, but maybe she was employed. Is she just going to be doing photography here at work? So there's a lot of things that can be found on the internet. But the other side of thinking like a boss is, I was really looking at these individuals and thinking, what can you do for me? So when I go to an interview, I really try to think about what I can do for them. Because in the end, I'm there to perform a service. They're there to pay me for what I can do for them. So I need to think about how that stands out and what I can provide for them. The big key term, I guess, there is value added. That's a hot term in the business community, I think. Where can I add value to the business? So develop a list of questions. I've always been told that I probably need to stay away from some of the superficial questions, like how much vacation do you offer? How much money am I going to make? That sort of thing. Trust me, they'll tell you. And a lot of them will kind of go through their preliminary spiel when you get there for the first interview. But think about some other questions, particularly what's the culture in the workplace. And I really like the round robin interview because I do want to hear the same answer 4 different times. If I don't, then I do. And I know something's a little fishy and you're just trying to sell me a brand. But you can also read news articles about companies. And for instance, everybody gets in the news if they do something poorly. Lumber Liquidator just recently got the news for doing something poorly. So anything can be found about a company if they're going to cut corners or if you can tell what's important to them also. So just to kind of circle back into the homework thing, something that's important to, I think, some of your bigger companies and how they project themselves to the community is their core values. And I've always tried to frame my responses or some of my experiences to what their core values are, especially if they ask me what do I like about them. If one of their core values happens to be something that I take interest in, I like to highlight that, and they love it. They eat it up. So that's always a good thing to take into consideration. Last thing I'll mention, and then I'll turn it over. So when they ask me about me, and I'm pretty sure David touched on this, but they asked me about what I'm good at, what stands out in Troy. And I can tell you that I'm OCD, I'm methodical, I'm meticulous, I'm very analytical. Those are all great words. They don't mean anything because I guarantee you that 3/4 of you say the same thing in here. So trying to back that up, what does that look like in my professional experience? So what did I do with my analytical tendencies? How did that materialize in a project that I was working on? And if you don't have a whole lot of professional experience, how did that materialize in your college career? I remember a business simulation course that I took. A lot of teamwork, a lot of decisions. That's tailor-made for interview questions. So trying to think through that and think through those situational-based interview questions he was talking about. Tell me about an opportunity that you had to grow, a mistake you made, how you made it right, quarrel that you had with a coworker. All of those things are very good questions to do your homework on before you go to the interview, because you will be asked some of them. Some companies want to know what your 5-year plan is. Some want to know what you did when you made a mistake to correct it. So having those questions and having some good answers to them is very important. Again, thank you for the presentation. Thank you for asking me to come today.
Thank you, George.
I want to mention 2 things. I want to mention 2 things I want to highlight. One is that you never know who you're interviewing with. Keep that in mind when you're dealing with people, because somebody that you're dealing with now as a customer, a year from now, maybe one of those guys who recruit you. So when I ask you, how'd you get this job? Well, Bill recruited me because he was a customer of mine from another company. And another story is, I've got a guy that I hired 3 times. As I moved to a different company, I took him with me 3 times. So that's an important thing. The other thing that he said is vacation stuff. Well, that's a showstopper, particularly on the first interview. Don't ask about salary, don't ask about vacation in the first interview.
Hello, everybody. I'm Martha Anderson. I'm a career accounting student here in Iowa State, and I graduated, I'm graduating December this year. A little bit about my story. I'm kind of like a testimonial of this workshop. Last year I attended this same workshop, and I attended the spring career fair. And I was able to talk to a recruiter of the company that I'm currently working. So I am a non-traditional student, so I just take online classes, and I work full-time as an accountant already. So I attended this career fair and this workshop, and I tried to do everything that I could from all David's advice, and I got the job, and I'm still a student, right? I don't have my degree or anything, and I was able to get the job. And I am so honored to be here talking to you guys a little bit of sharing my experience, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here. A little bit of the preparation that I did for the interview. I know David talked about how to prepare your resume and have it reviewed and all of that. I did that. Another thing that I did is that I researched the company. I researched everything that I could. I made sure I knew the person that I was gonna interview, and then I tried to find a LinkedIn page. I tried to find, Facebook and all of these things that usually recruiters do, but I tried to find something on the person that was gonna interview me, because I wanted to try to establish a link or have something in common that I can talk to that person and just do what you want to do is try to do, the bigger impact that you can, or establish a connection with them. So I did a lot of research, and I came with all of these facts. And I also did a lot of, I prepared about 10 questions, which was quite a lot, I guess, for the person that interviewed me to take. But I did my research, and I tried to come up with these questions like how can I better contribute to the team? So you want to try to come up with questions that say, how can I contribute, that you are eager to contribute to the company. You want them to know that you want to do something for them. On the attire, this is exactly the attire that I was wearing for my interview last year. And what I did is actually the previous day of my interview, I just put all everything together. I made sure, I tried different suits and everything, and I felt really comfortable with this. I thought this was a conservative thing. You want to make sure, especially ladies, that you're not showing anything in here or anything really conservative, or even your jewelry. I think pearls are kind of conservative in the business world and everything. If you don't have a suit, because I didn't actually have one, you want to make sure that you want to save and try to invest in one of a couple of suits, the best that you can afford, so you can kind of look, good for an interview. Body language is really important. I recommend, and I did this before too, I try to talk to me like in front of a mirror, right? It's just kind of creepy and weird, but sometimes, sometimes when you are with one person and you want to make sure that you look like you're interested, in what the interviewing is telling you. And you may not look like that. You may look like you are bored, So it's like really, really important to make sure that you are giving the image that you really want to give. So it's just really important for you to talk to yourself in front of the mirror, practice some possible questions that you may be asked, and just in front of the mirror, look at yourself, make sure and know that you're really giving the image that you want to give. This was shared to me in leadership workshop that I attended, and there's these things that I don't know if you hear, power positions. So one really easy that I wanted to share with you guys, and it works, okay? It works when you have to present to, in front of anybody. It works if you're going to an interview or anything, and it's really simple. Before you go and do something, and you need that boost of confidence, you do this. Just do this. I mean, I'm serious, it's just kind of weird, right? When I hear it in this leadership conference, I thought it was just kind of strange. I'm like, what would that do? But it works. I tried it and it works. I did this before coming here, actually. So it's I know it's a little thing and it may seem like it doesn't work, but it's not just about your attire, the presence that you want to give. It's just the self-confidence. You need to look confident. Nobody's gonna hire you if they see that you don't seem confident in coming contribute to the company, or you are just not confident enough to establish to have a communication, or you just wanna you need to look confident. And also, like, if you have been practicing different questions that you may be asked, you may just end up with a question that you didn't practice, right? And you need just it's just an impromptu kind of thing, and you need to come up with something. Confidence just goes a long way. I mean, that really helps you a lot. So I really recommend for everybody just to do this. Do this and get, a power position. Like, you can do it. So be really confident whenever you go to the interview. One of the things that I also did is actually, when trying to establish a link to the person that is going to interview me, I was lucky because my interviewing, which is my boss right now, she was pregnant back when she interviewed me. So I had a quick thing to establish a communication with her, right? I don't have kids or anything, but I can just go on and talking about pregnancy, right? About, I don't know, different things. So I established that link with her. I started, talking to her about that. I actually didn't get any question about the company, like they didn't, specifically ask me different things, but I made sure to say that. Like, I made sure for them to know that I actually did my research about the company. So I don't exactly remember what I said, but in a sentence, as I was talking, I included something or a fact that I saw on their website. And that's a way that you're letting them know you actually did your research. I did get the question, tell me about yourself. She asked me the question. I got the question about what are your weaknesses and what are your strengths. And I remember being like so enthusiastic and positive and confident when I did my interview. And as we were finalizing the interview, my interviewer said, let me introduce you to the other managers and the director. So at the end of the interview, I actually met, all the managers and all the director of finance that I work with right now. So everybody was so nice, and I was just like really, really confident when I went to my interview. And I did send a thank you note. I actually sent an email that day, like David suggested, and I did send a thank you note to him. I mean, I was hired about a month after. So that's just my experience. Thank you.
Thank you.
I love all these success stories. This is great. Okay, so the main point that she made is about attitude. Attitude is everything, folks. So, we teach that just the superhuman or the superhero pose. Batman or Superman standing on the wall looking over the city, or to infinity and beyond. You go in the bathroom and do that quietly. But it makes a difference. So attitude is everything. So that's a great story. We use that a lot with people. And again, I like myself. Please don't forget that. Go home and do that. Go when you get home, do that. Promise me you'll do that when you go home. But go and you'll stand in the bathroom and you'll look at yourself and you'll say at least 5 times with a big smile, I like myself. And get in the habit of doing that, because self-esteem is a wonderful thing. Thank you very much, folks. Appreciate your time.